good, influential marriage. Well, let him. He is going to. He is going to marry the Princess Anna. Not while I live. He made overtures there a year ago and was rebuffed. Yes, but he will make overtures again, and this time he will not be rebuffed. Oh, Eugen, can't you see that this plot against you is being engineered by some persons who know all about your affairs, and whose desire is to prevent your marriage with Princess Anna? Only one man in Europe can have any motive for wishing to prevent your marriage with Princess Anna, and that is the man who means to marry her himself. Eugen went very pale. Then, Aribert, do you mean to convey to me that my detention in Ostend was contrived by the agents of the King of Bosnia? I do. With a view to stopping my negotiations with Sampson Levi, and so putting an end to the possibility of my marriage with Anna? Aribert nodded. You are a good friend to me, Aribert. You mean well, but you are mistaken. You have been worrying about nothing. Have you forgotten about Reginald Dimmock? I remember you said that he had died. I said nothing of the sort. I said that he had been assassinated. That was part of it, my poor Eugen. Pooh, said Eugen. I don't believe he was assassinated. And as for Sampson Levi, I will bet you 1,000 marks that he and I come to terms this morning, and that the million is in my hands before I leave London. Aribert shook his head. You seem to be pretty sure of Mr. Levi's character. Have you had much to do with him before? Well, Eugen hesitated a second. A little. What young man in my position hasn't had something to do with Mr. Sampson Levi at one time or another? I haven't, said Aribert. You? You are a fossil. He rang a silver bell. Hans, I will receive Mr. Sampson Levi. Whereupon Aribert discreetly departed, and Prince Eugen sat down in the great velvet chair and began to look at the papers which Hans had previously placed upon the table. Good morning, your Royal Highness, said Sampson Levi, bowing as he entered. I trust your Royal Highness is well. Moderately, thanks, returned the Prince. In spite of the fact that he had had as much to do with people of royal blood as any plain man in Europe, Sampson Levi had never yet learned how to be at ease with these exalted individuals during the first few minutes of an interview. Afterwards he resumed command of himself and his faculties, but at the beginning he was invariably flustered, scarlet of face, and inclined to perspiration. We will proceed to business at once, said Prince Eugen. Will you take a seat, Mr. Levi? I thank your Royal Highness. Now as to that loan which we had already practically arranged. 1 million, I think it was, said the Prince airily. 1 million, Levi acquiesced, toying with his enormous watch chain. Everything is now in order. Here are the papers, and I should like to finish the matter up at once. Exactly, your Highness, but... But what? You months ago expressed the warmest satisfaction at the security, though I am quite prepared to admit that the security is of rather an unusual nature. You also agreed to the rate of interest. It is not everyone, Mr. Levi, who can lend out 1 million at 5.5%, and in 10 years the whole amount will be paid back. I believe I informed you that the fortune of Princess Anna, who is about to accept my hand, will ultimately amount to something like 50 millions of marks, which is over 2 million pounds in your English money. Prince Eugen stopped. He had no fancy for talking in this confidential manner to financiers, but he felt that circumstances demanded it. You see, it's like this, your Royal Highness, began Mr. Sampson Levi in his homely English idiom. It's like this. I said I could keep that bit of money available till the end of June, and you were to give me an interview here before that date. Not having heard from your Highness, and not knowing your Highness's address, though my German agents made every inquiry, I concluded that you'd made other arrangements, money being so cheap these last few months. I was unfortunately detained at Ostend, said Prince Eugen, with as much haughtiness as he could assume, by important business. I have made no other arrangements, and I shall have need of the million. If you will be so good as to pay it to my London bankers. I am very sorry, said Mr. Sampson Levi, with a tremendous and dazzling air of politeness, which surprised even himself. But my syndicate has now lent the money elsewhere. It is in South America. I don't mind telling your Highness that we've lent it to the Chilean Government.' 'Hang the Chilean Government, Mr Levi!' exclaimed the Prince, and he went white. 'I must have that million. It was an arrangement.' 'It was an arrangement, I admit,' said Mr Sampson Levi. 'But your Highness broke the arrangement.' There was a long silence. 'Do you mean to say,' began the Prince with tense calmness, 'that you are not in a position to let me have that million?' 'I could let your Highness have a million in a couple of years' time.' The Prince made a gesture of annoyance. 'Mr Levi,' he said, 'if you do not place the money in my hands tomorrow, you will ruin one of the oldest of reigning families, and incidentally you will alter the map of Europe. You are not keeping faith, and I had relied on you.' 'Pardon me, your Highness,' said little Levi, rising in resentment. 'It is not I who have not kept faith. I beg to repeat that the money is no longer at my disposal, and to bid your Highness good morning.' And Mr Sampson Levi left the audience chamber with an awkward, aggrieved bow. It was a scene characteristic of the end of the 19th century, an overfed, commonplace, pursy little man who had been born in a Brixton semi-detached villa, and whose highest idea of pleasure was a Sunday up the river in an expensive electric launch, confronting and utterly routing, in a hotel belonging to an American millionaire, the representative of a race of men who had fingered every page of European history for centuries, and who still, in their native castles, were surrounded with every outward circumstance of pomp and power. 'Aribert,' said Prince Eugen a little later, 'you were right. It is all over. I have only one refuge.' 'You don't mean—' Aribert stopped, dumbfounded. 'Yes, I do,' he said quickly. 'I can manage it so that it will look like an accident.' Chapter 19 and 20